What movie TV show character was made to be nice but was an SS-hole? Initially, Brian Griffin was once the voice of reason among the mostly ignorant Griffin family. Now he's just a self-centered Rick. Emily from Emily in Paris. Terrible FKN person in every way. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Anna Hathaway's friends in The Devil Wears Prada. Ted Mosby. People literally have always themed weddings because they think Snape's story is romantic. The parents from The Parent Trap. Seriously, each one agreed to abandon one of their children and keep twin sisters apart. That sucked up. Blue from Foster Home for Imaginary Friends. In the pilot, he was Mac's best friend and saved him from being a lonely, latchkey kid that got picked on constantly by Terrence. Then as soon as the show actually got green-lit, he becomes selfish, annoying, and a constant antagonist. All the other characters like Walt and Coco are actually nice and help Mac. But Blue is a constant hithead. Always frustrated me about that show. Edit. Okay, my details were a bit foggy. It's Blue not Blue and Wilt not Walt. Also, yes, Eduardo was an MVP. Peter Pan. I feel like Patrick from SpongeBob started out as earnest but stupid and kinda turned into Onsole. Caillou. Carrie Bradshaw. Jim from The Office constantly picking on a guy just trying to do his job. Hitting on a woman he knows was in our relationship, making her emotionally cheat on her fiance for years. Unable to take responsibility for his actions, can barely manage people and shuts down as soon as things are difficult. Jim is an SS. The little old witch in Beauty and the Beast. So, she turns up in the middle of the night and gets all pissy when he won't let a strange, dirty, old woman sleep in his house. Instead of turning into an enchantress and giving him a lecture, she decides to turn him into a beast, all hair and fangs. Not only that, for no reason, she decides to punish the staff as well by turning them into household objects. Then, not content with ruining his young life, she imposes a ridiculous and unachievable, or so she thought, condition on him, where he must love and be loved by someone. Belle enters the scene and undoes everything by falling in love with the beast. Probably pissed off. By now, the enchantress changes everything back to normal with no repercussions or punishment. The enchantress is a grade A SS-hole. Jerry from Tom and Jerry. Sheldon Cooper. I'm surprised no one has mentioned this character. One of the big reasons I stopped watching the show was how every SS-hole trait by Sheldon was always attributed to Asperger's or him just being awkward and a nerd. He was an asterisk SS-hole to everyone, including Leonard, and they all let him get away with it, which just made the whole show worse. I'd say Tom from Parks and Rec is an interesting example. Inverse, he's clearly meant to be selfish and out of touch, but the show aims for him to overall be a decent person at heart, or at least be well-meaning. This works sometimes, but a lot of the time he simply comes across as too smarmy, pushy, arrogant, and rude for it to really hit. Jacobon lost the ucking arrogance and presumption to put so many people through so much asterisk bullshit just to win a philosophical argument, an argument you were wrong about, with the angry spirit of your deceased brother, whom you killed in the first place. Hyde in that 70s show, he was a pretty hitty friend. Dumbledore, numerous examples, most notably failing to protect his school for 6 years in a row. He also was clearly an SS-hole in Snape's memories, asked, "What will you give me in return?" when Snape pleaded for the Potter's protection. My favorite though is that he announced Slytherin as the winners of the House Cup, allowed them to celebrate, decorated the Great Hall in Slytherin colors, and then only after they'd finished celebrating, changed the result to make Gryffindor win. He had ample opportunity to award the points to Gryffindor prior to the ceremony. The tall girl from Tall Girl. Bloom from Winx Club. Bossy Itch wanted all the attention for herself. Piper Chapman from OITNB. Hated her by season 2. Tori from Victorious. The third Hokage in Naruto. The minute Naruto can walk, he gave him an apartment and had him fend for himself. Meanwhile, he was a shunned outcast. There is no way that Naruto is as mentally stable as he was without literal divine intervention. Ross from Friends. I'm not one of those SS-holes who think French has aged terribly, because they made some gay jokes here and there, they made fun of everybody. But the more I rewatch it, the more Ross is no longer funny or sympathetic after season 4. Like, at all. Ross is everything that a guy should never be, and the fact that he's always portrayed as this good, sweet guy is disturbing when you take into account his behavior. And yes, I know it's a sitcom playing for laughs, but still. Why people were rooting for Rachel to end up with him is beyond me. The writers did such a good job showing how terrible they were for each other early on in the show. Lorelai and Rory Gilmore. Lily in Himym. Grandpa Joe from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I want to say Michael Bluth, but that show was so written that everything was definitely done on purpose, including him supposedly being the nice, normal one in the family but actually being a selfish ickhead just like the rest of them, especially to his own son. JD from Scrubs is a huge hole. I love the show, but it gets harder and harder to watch Eacher watch since he treats women and his friends like hit a lot and is sort of an entitled brat. A lot of people listing Ross and Ted Mosby, but I'd add Xander Harris to the list. He's light rally described as the heart of the group, yet does a lot of not okay things in his relationships with women, and can act pretty hitty to all of his friends. Every character in The Big Bang Theory is toxic and all the jokes are them either being toxic or pointing out how they're toxic. Clark from The 100. She was supposed to be a strong leader but ended up being a psychopathic dictator dud, and it feels like the show didn't even mean for it to happen. Princess Bubblegum from Adventure Time. She does some real messed up stuff and doesn't really get any comeuppance, and no, she really doesn't get much character development. Steve Urkel, bursting into his neighbor's house every day without their knowledge or permission, sometimes breaking their stuff with his clumsiness. Ben 10. Basically him in Alien Force Season 3 and afterward. Olivia Pope from Scandal was a terrible human being. What's the most ridiculous rule you've heard someone have for their house, family, children? When I was a kid, I spent a lot of time at my best friend's house. Her mom wouldn't let us drink Marethin 1 glass of water in the afternoon because she thought it would dilute the nutrients in our body. Instead, she gave us 7-Up if we were thirsty. I ended up secretly drinking water out of the bathroom faucet every time I used the bathroom. When I was thirsty at her house. My friend's parents ran a tab for him and his brother. They added up how much they spent on food, clothes, sports, etc. and told the 2 boys how much they would have to pay them back. I remember once we got yelled at for eating his dad's snacks and he added it to the tab. When they graduated, the parents cleared the tab for their graduation gift, so basically they got nothing other than a reminder of how much they cost. My wife once had a friend over for a sleepover when SHE was little. Suddenly, their mum showed up to take them home. Apparently, the friend had seen beer in the fridge and called her mum crying because of it. They were not allowed to look at, talk about, think about, and especially drink beer. Scared her so much that she called her mum to come get her. I knew a guy who, in his 20s, still had a bedtime enforced. He had to be in bed by 8 p.m., and if he was sleeping over at a friend's house, in this case at my house during my 21st birthday party, he had to phone his dad at 8 p.m. to say he was going to bed. He didn't go to bed though, at least. My great uncle only allowed 1 bowl, 1 plate, 1 spoon, 1 fork, 1 knife, 1 cup, and 1 light bulb in his house. He was married with 3 kids. He ate first, then the wife, then the kids by age. When he went to another room, the light bulb followed. Edit. Thank y'all for the awards. Edit 2. Removed the second mention of the plate. When we were 13, a friend of mine was kicked out of the house by his parents for a week because he stacked things wrong in the freezer, and some bread got squished. He spent the week staying at different friends' houses each night until his parents let him come back home. Edit. Holy moly, this got a lot of action. For those wondering what kind of parents my friend had, the mom was super religious and tended to be pretty strict, but tried, unsuccessfully, to hide it when A and Y of our group were at their house. The stepdad wasn't allowed to have much input when it came to punishments because he wasn't the bio dad. My friend and his sister were always punished pretty much immediately by the mom, and stepdad would just kinda disappear. Regardless of the error made, the punishments would build until she would snap and say something like, "Get out of my house, I don't want to see your face." She was definitely verbally and emotionally abusive, but I never saw signs of physical abuse. There were multiple occurrences of me or other friends going to spend the night and being sent back home shortly after because she was in a bad mood and my friend didn't have his room clean enough for her liking. I.e. a plate and fork on the dresser from Breakfaster, a couple clothing items on the floor. I have a friend whose dad had 1 paper towel specifically used for eating bagels. You can't heat or eat your bagel on anything other than the bagel towel. No plates or bowls were allowed to be used for bagels. You got your turn with the bagel paper towel or you waited till it was free. Was dating a woman for a couple of months, nothing met off or anything with her, but we took a vacation where we visited both of our immediate families. At her parents' house, we weren't allowed to sit next to each other or stand near one another. Also, we couldn't sleep in the same bed. I had to sleep on the couch and she got the spare room. Their reason was that they didn't want any funny business happening in front of them. We were both 32 at the time. A friend's parents had a pool table. His mom decided to play with us one day and gave us the house rules. She said, when it's someone's turn to shoot, I tell them. If someone gets ahead of me, they lose their turn. Everyone plays very hard, on the end, I win. The kids could not watch Barney because it's a dragon. It was a religious family. Wasn't necessarily a rule, but I had a good friend whose mom had locks installed on all the kitchen cabinets to prevent her only child from eating when he wasn't supposed to. When he got old enough to earn money, she took 50% of whatever he made. His senior year in high school, when he turned 18, he came home from school and found all his belongings out in the driveway. Happy birthday, child. My mom and dad let him live with us till he could financially get on his feet. When my sister was expecting her first boy, I got the baby a little stuffed bunny. Its ears happened to have a floral pattern. She got rid of it because there's no way my boy is playing with flowers. My Phil forbade my wife, and tried to forbid my 2 children, from driving once they passed their driving test. His wisdom was, put that piece of paper, driving license, in a drawer for 5 years, to reduce the amount of insurance they would pay, spoken like he was passing down the knowledge of the ancients. Ucking idiot. Ooh, my wife didn't have a door on her bedroom until she was a teenager because you shouldn't have to hide anything from your parents. Her mom also would get really upset if she closed her bedroom door at night when she went to sleep. All of the siblings would sleep with doors open. It was a big adjustment for her at first when we got together to sleep with the bedroom door closed. A lady once watched my kids, and the rule was no beverages during a meal. I think she didn't want kids filling up on liquids instead of food. My stepmom had a totally bonkers rule about feet. She was irrationally afraid of plantar warts and, according to her, anyone she didn't know intimately had plantar warts. As a family, we had a second home beach house that was basically a small bungalow and only had one restroom with one stall shower. Nobody, no friends, relatives, could use that shower after the beach because they'll get their plantar wart all over the floor, and then she'll take a shower and she'll get plantar warts. We also had a swimming pool, and she would make new people, including children, wear socks in theswiming pool. And as far as I know, nobody living in our house, including her, ever had plantar warts. So, unreasonable? Sure. Effective? Sure. I was in a friend's kitchen. We were 8, sneezed, then turned and took a kitchen paper tissue from the roll, cleared my nose, and walked toward the kitchen sink door to throw the wad into the trash bin. My friend burst out, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "What?" "Throw away the trash." He continued, "Are you crazy? Snot paper doesn't go in the kitchen trash." Jesus, what if Mom found out? I'd already thrown it, but he fished it out of the bin and flushed it in the toilet in under 10 seconds. I already knew his mom was a nasty old battle axe, but I had no idea how deep her will manifested itself in that sick house. Deleted. Extreme politeness. One of my friend's mom had very strict rules about politeness. I once went to this friend's house as a kid, and she offered me something to drink. I said, "Yes, please, and thank you." Once she gave me the drink. The next day at school she told me her mom was upset and wasn't sure if I was allowed to come back. According to her, the mom, I should have said, "Yes, thank you, for offering me this drink," and thank you, again after getting the drink. Both, "Yes please," and "Yes thank you," are correct in my language. In the end I was allowed to go back, but that's like a weird reason to be mad at a kid. We also weren't allowed to call something ugly, or say that something tastes or smells bad. Instead we had to say, "I don't like how it looks, smells, tastes." Small edit to clarify that part. We weren't allowed to use these phrases at all when she was watching us, ever. You accidentally ate some food that went bad? It's not gross, you just don't like it. I went to visit a college roommate's family, and everyone had to go to bed at 8 p.m. because that was the youngest daughter's bedtime. The kid was 8 or 9 years old. I laughed because I thought they were joking, but the kid threw a tantrum that I wasn't going to bed. They weren't kidding. I did, obviously, but WTF? The next day the parents told me it would be best if I just head on back to college a day early. Yeah, no kidding, bye. My roommate thought I was the ssho. I laughed at her too. That guests have to pay for their stay. They invited me for dinner, then calculated how many minutes I was over, charged for my portion of food, drink, electricity and water usage. Yes, they counted toilet flushing and timed me on hand washing. I could never do this to anyone. When I was younger, a friend said that we weren't allowed to watch SpongeBob. I found out later on that, allegedly, this is because the holes in SpongeBob induce lustful thoughts. I had a friend in 5th grade and her mother was legitimately insane. She wouldn't let her daughter come to my house because we had carpeting. I think she had some Munchausen by proxy because she was convinced her child was allergic to everything, including dust mites, any innocuous dirt in carpeting. The girl also developed an eating disorder. She was a dancer when we were kids and her mother apparently monitored what she ate extremely closely. I felt so badly for her. My parents will swear up and down that none of these actually happened, but they didn't let us watch Rugrats because the way they talk about adults is vile. Picked me up from a sleepover at 1 a.m. and spanked me in front of my friends because they found a picture of Britney Spears hidden under my bunk bed. Which led to the only Christian radio stations rule. Grounded me for a month for one episode of Ren and Stimpy, which led to the no Nickelodeon ever house rule. Power Rangers was obviously straight from Satan, so that was out. I brought home some homework about evolution in 7th grade and my dad burned it and took the ashes to me science teacher. This was when the only God-approved science house rule started. The don't make a single noise after 8 p.m., including the microwave beeping, ever, and tiptoe so you don't get interrogated rule, was unspoken but very well understood. Forced me to wear Jesus shirts to middle school. With all my skater friends, which got me bullied for years, which led to the very obvious follow-up rule. If you are told it isn't happening, then it can possibly be happening. List goes on. Religious folks are uckin' weird. The 12-year-old kid had to wear a shirt and helmet while playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3. It was me. I was the kid. When I was a kid, my friend's mom was a little nuts. She had a sitting room with a couch and a love seat that nobody was ever allowed to sit on. You had to walk through it to get to the rest of the house and it led to the kitchen and then the living room. If you sat on the furniture in the sitting room she'd throw a fit. I always felt like it was such a waste to have such a nice room and never use it. It would have been a perfect study room or reading room. She also had other crazy rules, like punishing my friend when his little sister did anything wrong, as if he was responsible for her actions and looking out for her. I was 5 and at a friend's house. We were playing in leaves outside. There was a box of leaves. I wanted to move closer to his box of leaves. My box had no bottom, so the leaves spilled out into a small pile. He went and told his mother. She came out and spanked me, quite hard. I ran home crying to my mom, partly because it hurt and partly because of the injustice. She comforted me, but didn't do much else, or so I thought. I learned, decades later, my mom called up the spanker and told her to never lay a hand on any of her children ever again. Meth heads who wouldn't let their kids watch SpongeBob because bad influence.